When I arrived in China, one of the first things I did was take a walk around the block to see what I could find. And one of the first things I found were grocery stores. And in the grocery stores, there were a variety of wonderful foods, including the dragon fruit, which is this pink fruit, the durian, which is this yellow fruit, lovely mushrooms of all types, and it was just quite fascinating to go in this grocery store and see foods that I had no idea what they were. As you can see, they also had Coca-Cola, Orange Fanta, and Sprite. And my favorite pièce de résistance was the crunchy duck heads, which they like to eat for snacks. No, thank you. Wandering around, I found a what they call a department store, which is really like a mall for us, but all in one building. And they had a floor with restaurants. And I thought, well, why didn't I try to eat at this hibachi? Of course, I speak no Chinese, and nobody in there spoke English. So I got my handy dandy translator out, and first he wanted to know what kind of meat I wanted. And so I would point to the meats, and he'd go, oh, that is cow's ear. I said, no. How about pig's foot? No. How about sheep tongue? No. How about snowflake beef? Oh, yes. Of course, I had no idea how much was going to be in this with this food, and so I also ordered a soup. So I wanted to try something different. And by this time, every waiter in the room and several of the patrons are gathered around to see what kind of conversation we're having. The food was fabulous. They cooked it in front of me. Of course, he's saying, is somebody else coming to join you? And I say, oh boy, I must have ordered way too much food. And in the end, he's trying to make me an egg sandwich, fried egg sandwich. And I'm like, no, I don't think so, no more. And he goes, oh, yes, you can have for lunch. Anyway, it was a wonderful experience, and they were great. But the next day, I decided to go for a dollar dish, and this was like an English muffin with some kind of, I think, a beef, fried beef, and it was good also. On one day, we went to the Muslim market, and it was a very busy, noisy place, but oh, the food they had. Unfortunately, we ate there, so in a restaurant, so we didn't really eat the street food, but it looked fabulous and very enticing and smelled good. On one of our home experiences, we made dumplings, and this is also a pancake that they made mostly out of flour. And we had to go to a market and ask for whatever Chinese vegetable they gave us, and then help prepare the food. And that food was a much simpler and very fresh food experience, and a lot of fun to eat in the home and see how the people actually ate. When we were on the Yangtze River, we would stop at different ports, and there were always people out there um, serving some local fish, usually, or a chowder type food. And probably 16 or 17 evenings, we gathered together to eat a meal together, and it was served on a Lazy Susan just like this. And it seemed like the Lazy Susan got bigger and bigger. Sometimes the food was excellent, very tasty, and sometimes it tasted like the kind of takeout Chinese food we have here at home. When we had a chance, we went and had a hamburger, pizza, or Kentucky Fried Chicken, even. The shopping centers are in almost every town, unless it's a very small town or very rural, and they're all pretty much the same. These big, like 5, 6 story buildings with small stores inside of them, instead of like a main store. And some of them were quite modern, especially in Hong Kong. But I really took a picture of this because these ladies were all dressed identically. And it was like they were having a team meeting, and they were singing songs and then jumped up and down and were ready to go out and sell the product. In China, they call the toilet room, translated into English, the happy place or the happy room. And it was the bane of my existence because I could not, I was just, it was just a traumatic experience. And I wasn't the only one. So we were always very happy if we could find a handicapped toilets because they were much more to our liking. I did finally conquer how to use it, although it was in Tibet when I was losing consciousness. And I finally figured out how to do it. So I am happy to say that is one thing I can cross off my list of traumatic experiences. In China, they have many types of art. A few to mention are the inventive masks that they use in dramatic plays, the very intricate and artistic Buddhist temples that they have in their home for worship, um, parks where they're playing beautiful music, just people sitting and kind of gathering together to jam, what we've called jam, and my favorite, the Buddha of Hell. We traveled all across China from north to south, east to west, and then up to other places. And the houses were very varied. In Hong Kong, it would be like in any big city, the houses, the apartment buildings and skyscrapers. They even had Christmas trees already decorated in November and light shows. We had the opportunity to go see a model community, and I put that in quotes. Um, and what was interesting to me was what was not shown to us, but rather what was shown to us. And this was out in the country, but around this house, this housing development, were probably 95, 70 floor skyscrapers. China's the brings the most cement into the country as any other country. But it was a little suburbia and very cute, and we went into one of the houses. But as I said, the vast majority of the people were being moved from agrarian land onto these huge apartment buildings, and then they were being trained to work in more modern industry like electronics. This is the house that the people lived in before moving into their new community. We're very proud because they were allowed to be kind of entrepreneurial, so they could rent out rooms or fix food for people. Historic villages, they had gorgeous, very traditional homes with all the decorations, and that was great to see. And the final type of house were the boat people, and this was actually in Hong Kong, which is very modern. They were had houses or high-rise houses built for them, and they tried to live in them, but most of them ended up going back to their boats, and they used them for tourists by driving them around and showing the sights. But they also lived on their boats, and it was quite fascinating to see their boats and how they lived. Finally were the wonderful people of China and Tibet. This woman I met while I was waiting for our group to come from a hike that they'd been on, and she was there with some folk dancers. It was in Tibet. And she just came over and she wanted to help me sit down. She was very solicitous, was trying to practice her English, but mostly we did translations again through the dictionary. But I asked her what she wanted to be, and because what she was studying, and she wanted to be a farmer. She wanted to keep the Tibetan tradition, and she was so sweet, and I just had the most great time, and I loved watching the folk dancers dance. In every town we went, we had a guide that lived in that town, and this woman was up with the panda bears, and she thought my friend Judy and I looked like mama panda bears, and she was just very taken with us. A lovely woman. This is my friend Trudy. Actually, her name is Judy, but one couple could never remember the difference of our names, and so they called us Trudy. And I guess now I'm calling her Trudy. We were both on our own, and our guide called us Yang women, voluptuous, curvy, and good of nature. So we became fast friends because we were always the last ones in every place we went. way behind everybody else. But we bonded on the day that she had to go through the metal detector. I had gone ahead of her, and when I turned around, I saw her having this very animated discussion with the guard. And I could see our people probably about 10 blocks ahead of us going through the gate. And I was afraid I was going to lose them because there were a lot of people in the Forbidden City. And all of a sudden, when I turned around, they were dragging her into this side room. So at that point, I ran as fast as I could and yelling our guide's name. And he came back, and it turned out she had a small metal nail file that they thought was very dangerous. And finally, there were the children. Everywhere we went, we would see groups of school children walking by, and they would turn, smile at us, and say, "Hello, how are you?" And we would say, "Hello, we are very good." But one day we went to this school, and you can see it wasn't a rich school. It had quite a few, it was pretty simple, basically, and you sat on these very narrow boards. But each of the children was assigned one of us, and this was a little girl that was assigned me, and she had drawn me several cards and pictures and practiced doing her English with it. And we were just enjoyed so much seeing the children. You can see we're all sitting in the classroom with the children. And then at the very end, they serenaded us with this lovely song, and we serenaded them back with "You Are My Sunshine."